So in this video, we're going to be talking more about another software. It's called Civil 3D. So Civil 3D, this is Civil 3D 2017. I haven't done 2018 yet. I haven't upgraded myself. We're just going to start out with kind of some of the basics and starting from basically a point file, which is where you have to start from anyways, because pretty much everything is almost useless in Civil 3D without a point file. Granted, not completely useless, but they're just things that you need to do, and you have to have it'd be nice to have a point file. So we're going to start out with point file. So Civil 3D, though, is kind of different than AutoCAD. So if you're coming from AutoCAD, or even worse, coming from Land Desktop, there's going to be a lot of things that you wish were different. But to be honest, once you grasp it and once you got a hold of it, it's actually pretty fast. I say worse for Land Desktop because we're all used to a certain standard already, and then they went and kind of did this, and it was a little bit different, and a lot of people who have used Land Desktop before really don't care for Civil 3D, but I promise you give it the time of day, it will do everything you want to do. Granted, not everything is there like it used to be in Land Desktop, but it's still pretty good. So Civil 3D is made up of a few different options here. You have Prospector, which is pretty much, it was told to me once that it's called Prospector, like you're prospecting for gold, as the Prospector tab holds all the money. So this is all of your actual items themselves. So once you generate a surface, once you generate a profile, those actual items will show up here. Under settings, this is where it holds all of the styles and controls a lot of the look of Civil 3D. Looking at the point collection here, you'll see there's a whole slew of them in here. And I already have some of them set up, and I think these are all out of the box right now, actually. I haven't opened up my template yet, or one of the templates that I commonly use. But it's pretty nice. It's not too bad, but just note there's a lot to set up in here, and it takes a lot of time to set it up. And it's one of the key features that holds people a lot from actually going to the software. So I'm going to pause for a second here while I open up the So here is the Civil 3D template. And it doesn't have much in it, but this is one for the survey items only. There are some engineering things in here, but for the most part, it is strictly surveying. So again, you have Prospector, where the gold, where the money's at. Your settings, which is all your styles and the way things look. The survey tab, which kind of gets us back sort of around the way we're used to things working with Civil 3D. With Land Desktop, maybe not exactly, but it's close. I guess close enough for government work, as they say. We'll get into this a little bit later, but there is a survey tab. Some people use it, some people don't use it. And to be honest, I've seen companies be successful not using it, and then be successful using it. So I really don't have any big pros and cons to the survey tab, other than the fact it's just a little bit different way of organizing things. So if you're going to be using a lot of data shortcuts, odds are you'll probably be using the survey tab, just kind of a heads up. And then there's the toolbox, which is pretty much made for running all of your reports. So if you want to know what all the control points are and you want to print out a report of that, it's in the toolbox. If you want to know all your profile information, it's in the toolbox. Vertical curves, such and such. Your quantity takeoffs, there's a toolbox, quantity takeoff for that too, to run a report. Stuff of that nature you're all going to find under here. And they're all very customizable. And you can kind of see they're organized pretty nice. I think they are, at least. So that's all right here. But for the most part, for this very section here, we're going to be concentrating just on settings right now. So before I put points into my drawing here and kind of show you importing a point file, first things first, let's make sure some things are set up and kind of look at what we have to start with. So I'm going to go to the settings tab here, and I'm going to go to points and point styles. So under point styles, you'll see a whole slew of them here. I always tell people to put a name and then the actual point. Eventually, you're going to end up having such a hodgepodge template sometimes with other people's things, and you might like a style somebody else had, so you'll put it in your drawing. It's really nice to know whose is whose. So these are all mine here. I just kind of threw them in here, and I put the initials in front of it. And you can kind of see a slew of them down here. And if you notice, I really only have ones that I sort of created. You know, some of them I might have taken, modified, and then added MEI to the front of it because I made it an official standard. So just note, it's always good to have some sort of organization here. There's always the joke, I have the people who have 1 million blocks, but they say they have a really great organization structure. Keep it simple. I wouldn't go 1 million point styles here, obviously. That's getting way too carried away. But, you're going to have quite a handful. And I got some of them here. And to be honest, there's always still some more I need, and I keep adding back. But for right now, this is a good base. The other thing you're going to want to look at is your description keys. Now, the description keys will pull down over here. I'm going to make it a little bit easier to see here. I'm going to hit Edit Keys and then kind of pull out. So these are the description keys. So the description keys will basically tell it what layer, if it's a BB code, it's going to go to points water main. So if it's a Buffalo box, it's going to go to points water main. That's the layer. And the point style that's going on is description only, and it's going to have a little cash sign with a star, which basically keeps the description the same across the board. There's a slight trick you can do with trees that includes you putting TRD, which would be my code for tree, and if you add a space, then the number, you can honestly already have it drop the TRD and just put 3 inches right next to it. So that's a little bit of a trick. I'll show you that in a little bit later in the video probably, or if not, the next video, depending how long this gets. But so here's all my description keys. So these are when the guys are out in the field. This is what on a typical day, these are the codes they will use. I will tell you right now, they are not perfect. Nobody is. I don't expect anybody to be. Everybody makes mistakes and everybody forgets. But you'll note here that when I bring in this point file, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's not on the appropriate layers. So just remember that when we start kind of going through this, as some things won't end up on the right layers and we're going to have to manually add them. Now, if the field people consistently make the same mistake, it's best either to add it to the description key or B, talk to your field people and get them using the right code, especially if you already have the code. So here's our list of codes that we have. To be honest, it's pretty simple to create a new code. What you do is just right click in here and go to new, and then you'll give it a name. And I don't know where it went. There it is, new description key. And then you just give it a name, and then you can call it whatever you want. If you notice, I'm going to call mine, here, I'll just call it I'll just call it the initials. Oh, I accidentally clicked enter. Here we go. So MEI. Now I keep everything in caps, just keep it consistent. And then I'm going to put a star. So the wild card at the end, the little asterisk, basically means anything that's MEI and then anything under the sun will automatically trigger this code. So, if you just had M star, then anything that starts with an M is going to fall under whatever layer and description key you set to be. So just note that sometimes you can get carried away with here and it gets all kind of crazy, but it's pretty simple to add a code, and then you just go through here. Okay, what do I want it to do? Well, I want it to be a description only, or I could put it in any one of these multiple points. But I'm just going to say standard point. Actually, we have one called MEI point, so I'm going to use that. Where are you? There, MEI point. Perfect. And then under here, I'm going to say description. Perfect. And then I'm going to leave it star, and I'm going to have it go on a layer here. And we'll just say I'm just going to pick any layer. I'll say it's going to go on points trees. Why not? So again, you can kind of see, I'm going to uncheck this parameter here. So you can kind of see, if you do a tree, you can have a scale parameter and a bunch of other stuff, but again, just keep it simple. The more complicated you make it, the more problems you may have. I'd start off simple, then slowly just add. So here we go. This is a basic descriptor key. It takes a while to create these, but once you're done, you probably won't even have them. Your field crew probably has something they're using already, so we'll close that out. Again, point styles, again, I always say it's easier to start from something than nothing, but if you have to, you can always create a new point style and call it whatever you want. Whatever you want to do, it's kind of possible. It's not too bad, and you can kind of go through here and change anything you want. So you have markers, you have the name here, geometry. I always tell it not to use the point elevation. The reason being is I don't want my lines to have elevation when I go from node to node. So sometimes I'll say flatten to elevation 0. Now this doesn't make the elevation 0 and it does not affect the surface, But what it will do is make it so when I'm drawing a line, I'm not attaching myself to whatever elevation that point is at, which is kind of what I want. And then, of course, you can set your layers. You have the marker, which is the symbol. It could be a little X. It could be a manhole. And that's being currently sent to 0. And it's currently on by block. I like to change these to by layer. But you can kind of leave it by block. I never had a problem with either one. But I'm just used to seeing by layers, so I make it by layer. So again, it's pretty simple, and the summary is just that. So let's import some points and see what happens. I already know there's going to be some things that don't go on the correct layers. So we're going to hit add here. And I'm going to pull up some files here. Where are we? Dropbox, training, test junk. And I have a text file. There we go. So I have 2 point files. So I'm going to add them both. You notice I can have both at the same time. And I'm going to select its point. So here we go. Just so you know, if you don't know what these are already. The one that this one is, it's comma delimited. It's a point, northing, easting. Z is for elevation. And D is for description. So it's basically the order in which the point file was created. So the TXT file has commas between each one of the categories, like so. And it automatically separates out. So that point file contains a point number. And then in this order, northing, easting, elevation, description. It seems to be a very common format. So PNEZD seems to be very common amongst most engineering firms. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to do a zoom extents here. Kind of get myself. And there we go. We have our entire picture. So you'll kind of see certain things went to certain layers. Certain objects now have light poles attached to them. And then certain ones have, found cut cross. Some have TVs and stuff. So again, this is the description key. This is all it's using right now is just the description key to put things on correct layers and give them the correct blocks. So let's take a look at sign here. So I'm going to go to my description key set and I'm looking for the key that starts with SN. If I can find it. I believe it's SN. I might have to find it in a second here. There it is, SN. So if something starts with SN, which this one does, although if you notice this particular one also had a handicap HC after it, or accessible. So you can automatically click here and you can kind of see it's going to apply this point style. And if you didn't know what that looked like, you can always go over to marker and take a look in here. And you can click and zoom. I warn you, you can also look at this in 3D like that, and it'll mess you up. So just watch out. You can always reset it. Just right click and go to reset view. But anyways, so it's automatically applying that sign. And it goes through here and ties it to here. And all these are, so these blocks or the sign here, we'll go to it over here. So all these things are just blocks. So all your blocks that you currently have or currently used before aren't for naught. You can still attach them and use them. Note, sometimes the blocks you used before are either too big or too small. So you probably will have to adjust the drawing scale on them as well. Especially if you forgot to change your units. Sometimes they will scale themselves up 12 times because that's converting from inches to feet or feet to inches or decimal feet. It's just going crazy. So just note there are some drawbacks to not setting units correctly in your blocks because then it tries to be smart for you. But if you are also smart, you should also know if you go to options here, and I believe it's under your system or user. There it is, user. And it says default settings when units are set to unitless. Make sure both of these are also set to unitless because a lot of people set their blocks to unitless, and then that'll be defaulted to feet, and there we go. And then from here, it's just a game of either A, you can go through and fix the layers, or B, start drawing and connecting the dots. I am going to pick C, however, and figure out what's going on here. So if you notice, I have some blank X's here that has nothing. So I'm going to hit update right there, and you'll notice that I have a few things. There's a surface one in here too. When you have the shield with an exclamation point in it, it usually means something needs to be updated or is out of date or out of whack. So just by running an update command on it, you can really fix what's going on. And a lot of people freak out, nothing's working. I always tell people do two things. Check for the shield with the exclamation point and regen the drawing. If those two things don't work, close out and come back into the drawing. And if that doesn't work, then contact support. Because usually one of those three things usually fixes it and gets you back to working again. So looking at point groups here, point groups can be very confusing to a lot of people. I've kind of mastered them now, I want to say. Every single time I say that, though, there's always something better I can figure out. But if you notice, I kind of put numbers in which order these need to be in. So looking here at description only, it doesn't have a number. So for me, that one needs to be sent to the bottom. And then what'll happen is it puts it all in this correct order so that when I hit apply and then regen, it'll automatically start doing what I want to do. Now, first things first, we have to check a few things here. One thing to check here is our biolog box here for trees. Make sure it's only pulling what it's supposed to. So there's transformers are on the trees. So you'll see TRAN. And that's because of this code here. So we're going to remove it out of the point group. So now when I go to trees, there should be no trees on this job. So now when I go back to point list, if you notice, there's no points. So again, checking your point list, going through here, going through the ropes, making sure it's all good. Is also good. Now, excuse me. What I ended up doing is I just clicked on the entire thing of point groups and hit update all of them. And if you notice, that technically fixed my problem. Now, some of these, like MTF, however, don't fall under these categories. So what I need to do is add that to whatever category it needs to be. So I have two categories here, really. So if it doesn't fall under trees, a storm schedule, or sanitary schedule, it's not just a symbol, it's not control point, it's not a monumentation, it's going to fall under these two. So for hardscape items, we go 2 decimal places. For grass and not hardscape, softscape, I guess you can call it, I guess if you want, they go 1 decimal place. So I'm going to put it on, since it's a fence, I'm going to put it on 2 decimal places. So I'm going to come into here and I'm going to modify. So I'm clicking on elevation at properties and I'm going to say include, and I'm going to go to the end here and I'm going to type in MTF star. And that will add it to that particular set. And when I regen, you'll notice it changes automatically. So one quick way, just in case you're missing out on something, on what's going on. Now, the easiest way to kind of nail down point groups, and again, I have these set up already. They're already come in with the template. But one easy way to test point groups is to create a new point group called none. And you'll see what you can do with this in a second. So I'm going to call none. I'm going to go and include all points. I'm going to say overwrite both of these. I have to hit overrides because I am using description keys to control the way points look and are labeled. So I want to overwrite them. So I'm going to hit apply and OK. Now if I regen and I did my job right, all these points will eventually disappear. It doesn't look like I did my job right though. I still see points. So let's go back to none and make sure I clicked include all points. I did. Point list, perfect. Let's make sure, I'll see what here. I forgot to set it to none. If I hit apply and OK, you'll notice they all disappear now. So this is how you really get used to using point groups. So I'm going to go back to point groups here and I'm going to say none to, and actually, you know what? I'm going to bring all points to the top. Now you'll notice none still exists, but all points is now on the top of the list. So with all points at the top, it will overwrite what none does. So if I put all points at the bottom again and hit apply and OK, if you notice it disappears. So what I could do, honestly, if I wanted to just isolate just the control items, I can put control above none and hit apply and OK, and it'll just show me the control items. Now, this actually stands for cable pedestal, not necessarily a control point, but since CP star is under the control group, you get cable pedestals. Just so you know, so this is kind of where naming your file something completely different. I probably would have called it TV. But this is what they chose, so we're going to go with it. So again, this is an easy way to kind of play around with what does what and how it does it. Like if I go to symbols only and I put that to the top, so now I'm only going to see symbols. Now you might be saying, well, how do I only get symbols to show? If you go to, again, all point groups here, if I go to the properties of symbols, if you notice both of these are set to none, which makes no sense at all, right? But if you go to overrides, I'm only overriding the point label style. I'm not overriding the style itself. So the only thing that's actually changing is the label, and it's changing the label to none for only these points. So that's the way I'm able to achieve just the objects and not the other pieces. Now, the one part where this fails is in this particular one, it's missing a label on purpose called catch basin. So if I add catch basin now, and I hit OK and I regen, oops, I lost one. You should start to see some catch basin symbols now. Alrighty, let's update all of them. The other way to do this too, and I probably need to actually update someone else. So my catch basin symbols aren't working. I'm not going to fret and start a new video over this. I figure it's best always to work through a problem than to get frustrated, start a new video, and say, okay, well, wow, it worked perfectly now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a group called selection. I usually use this trick to narrow down problems and issues like I'm having right now. So I'm going to call it selection. I'm going to say include raw descriptions with CB. I'm going to hit apply, and the first thing I'm going to do is look at my point list. And I can see I actually do have the CBs here. And as soon as I created it, you probably saw it better than I, you notice that the catch basins are now showing up on my screen. So what's going on here? So I'm going to say select the items, right click, and I'm going to edit points. And I already kind of know what's going on, so just so you know why I'm going here, is the style's not set up for catch basin. So catch basin is not in my description key. So I want to just set these to just something that represents storm. Now, I'm not actually going to set them to an actual catch basin. I'm going to actually make them a storm manhole. Our field people actually just label everything as a catch basin, and then later when we get the rim and invert sheets, we actually change the symbology to match the rim and invert intake sheets. But I'm going to change them all to storm manholes. So you can kind of see them there. I'm going to go back to symbols here, include, and make sure CB's at the end. I can see it clearly there. And I'm just going to take my selection group now and put it to the bottom. Now, if I did my job right, hopefully I did, I should just see this catch basin symbol now when I hit apply. And there we go. So, again, not the end of the world when something doesn't work. Just work through it. Odds are it's just a little missing setting. And the problem with Civil 3D is there's a lot of missing settings sometimes. I'm going to pause here for a second. All right, so I am back. I had to take a phone call. But anyways, so that's all there is to really modifying the points and showing the different symbols. So point groups really just have to kind of play around with it and kind of get to where your organization fits you best. So what I did here again for them is I kind of just labeled it, 1, 2. So this way I can just put them back in order here and take care of it like that. So that's how you control the points. In the next video, we'll go over a little bit more. I'm not really going to play connect the dots in front of you, but it's basically just a big game of connect the dots, and eventually this turns into something much more.